Palantir is one of the hottest AI stocks in the market today. Therefore, it's not surprising to me to be getting so many requests to make forecasts for Palantir's stock price. In this video, I will make a forecast for where I think Palantir's stock price will be in the year 2035, or in other words, 10 years from now, where do I think Palantir's stock price will be? As always, when making a stock price forecast, there are several estimates and assumptions I need to use because nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. That fact should go to caution investors from reading too much into these forecasts. It should be viewed as a potential scenario that could happen, but with a high degree of uncertainty. That being said, I will share with you precisely where I'm getting these numbers from and my thinking behind the adjustments so that you can come to your own conclusions about the Palantir stock forecast for 2035. Now, let's hear from a brief message from our sponsors, and then let's get into the stock price prediction for Palantir. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment to thank the sponsor of this video. Moomoo is a trading platform that allows individuals to buy and sell stocks and other investments. I posted the link to Moomoo in the description below. If you use that link to sign up to Moomoo, it'll help support my channel, but more importantly, you can get special incentives for using my link, including up to extra 10 free stocks. As I highlighted in the introduction of the video, I will be using several estimates and assumptions to make this stock price forecast, and I'll start with the earnings per share expected next year in 2025. The analysts on Wall Street that are following Palantir stock, they expect its earnings per share will be 43 cents per share next year in 2025. So I will be using that number in my stock price forecast. Those same analysts on Wall Street that are following Palantir stock, they think its earnings per share will grow at 85% per year over the next 5 years. Now, I think that's an optimistic forecast for the next 5 years, and I'm going to adjust that number downwards. I'll share with you my adjustment and my thinking behind why I'm making that adjustment downward. Now, the next thing I will need is Palantir's market price as of this recording, which is $36.77, and Palantir's forward price to earnings ratio as of this recording, which is near record highs at 85.33. So now that I have all the inputs to make the stock price forecast, let's go into my model for forecasting Palantir stock. I'll start your attention here on the left-hand side where I have the 43 cents in earnings per share expected for 2025. Remember, I got that from Yahoo Finance, and this is the Wall Street estimate for where they think its earnings per share will be next year. I think it's a reasonable forecast. I'm going to keep it as is. What I am going to adjust downward is the growth rate. Remember, the analyst on Wall Street, they were expecting an 85% increase in earnings per share. I'm revising that lower by 25%. I'm revising that down by 25% to 64% growth over the next 5 years. And it's because I think it's very difficult to grow your earnings per share by 85% per year for 5 years. That level of growth for that long of a time is very, very difficult to achieve. While it may be certainly reasonable to expect Palantir might achieve that, it's more likely that the earnings per share are going to be a little bit lower. So I revised it down by 25%. Now, if I apply that growth rate of 64% on the 43 cents earnings per share, I get an EPS for 2030, the year 2030, of $5.08. And I'm going to lower the growth rate even further between the year 2030 and 2036 for the same reason I mentioned above. If you're growing your earnings per share at 64% per year for 5 years, it's going to attract a great deal of competition, which is going to make it more difficult for you to achieve that growth rate for the next 5 years. So I'm going to revise that growth rate lower still. So from the year 2030 to the year 2036, I'm going to revise the growth rate down by 2/3. In other words, 21% is the growth rate I'm forecasting for Palantir between 2030 and 2036. So when I apply that growth rate to the $5.08 EPS in 2030, I get an EPS in 2036 expected at $16.18 for Palantir. Now, if you look at where we started 2025 with 43 cents and we applied all the growth in earnings, we've increased Palantir's earnings by nearly 40x between the next 10 years. So even though I revised those growth expectations lower, I'm still forecasting here a nearly 40x increase in Palantir's earnings per share over the next decade. So keep that in mind. These earnings per share growth expectations are robust still. Now, let me draw your attention to the right-hand side where we start with the price forecast. At the earnings per share of $16.18, if we apply the 85 forward PE multiple, which remember we got from Y charts here, that would mean Palantir's stock price could reach $1,375 per share in the year 2035. That would be a massive increase from the current $36 per share Palantir stock is trading at. Now, I don't think this scenario is the most probable outcome because I think Palantir's forward PE multiple of 85 is very high even for today, but for 10 years from now, when its earnings per share expectations are going to be lower, I think a forward PE multiple of 85 would be unreasonable to assume. So I think the forward PE multiple will likely be lower 10 years from now. So if it falls to 65, then the stock price would still experience a huge increase to $1,051 per share. If the forward PE falls to 35, then the stock price would still increase nicely to $566 per share. If the forward PE were to fall to 20, the stock price would still increase nicely to $323 per share. So you can see with this kind of earnings per share growth expected from Palantir stock, even if its forward PE multiple were to decrease by 3/4, it would still boast a healthy stock price increase in the next decade. That's how powerful earnings per share growth is in terms of increasing shareholder wealth. That's why I focus so much on earnings when I'm looking at investments, when I'm evaluating stocks for investment. So all this being said, where do I think it's the most likely price for Palantir in 2035? Well, I did say I expect the forward PE multiple to fall, and I expect it to land somewhere between a forward PE of 20 and 35, and the actual share price I think is probable for the year 2035 is between $400 and $500 per share for Palantir stock in the year 2035. Now, that would be a more than 10x increase from where it is today. And the key here is the earnings per share growth. If the earnings per share growth are not going as planned, are not going according to these growth rates I have forecasted, then I don't think the price will be this high. I think the key here is the earnings per share growth, not the PE multiple. I don't think the PE multiple will remain elevated. I think it will decrease. That part of this forecast, I'm more confident in than the earnings per share part of the forecast, where it's still more uncertain. A forward PE of 85 is already high, even by today's standards, even with this growth expected. If its earnings per share growth is to diminish, then that could lead to an even further decrease in the forward PE multiple. And as I shared with you here, I showed you everywhere I'm getting the numbers from, the adjustments I'm making, and you noticed so many areas of uncertainty. I'm using a forecasted growth rate in earnings per share, which is highly uncertain. I'm using a forward PE multiple forecast of decreasing, which is highly uncertain. And so I've got all of these elements working together, and the final product, the stock price, is an outcome of all of these uncertainties. So please do your own due diligence. This is for entertainment purposes only, and just provides a scenario of what could happen with Palantir stock given these elements. Now you can use your own elements, use your own assumptions, your own estimates to come up with your own stock price forecast. And in fact, I would be interested to see some of your stock price forecasts for Palantir stock in the comments section below. Did you know that over 90% of the people that watch my channel are not subscribed? It'll really help support my channel if you hit that subscribe button. And oh, by the way, one of the benefits of being subscribed is that I take requests from subscribers more often than I do from non-subscribers. So if you prefer that benefit, please subscribe to the channel.